I have a brother who's just over 40, living at home currently because he got out of his second marriage a little while ago and moved back in with my parents. And he's entering into his third marriage pretty soon. He's engaged, and we're just wondering how he does this. He seems to be going into this really quickly. He just met this woman, and it's kind of similar to previous relationships where he met her. She lives 3 states away, and all of a sudden we hear about her, and 3 weeks later he's engaged and he wants to get married. He wants to get married in March, and we're just trying to figure out how to talk to him. He suffers from pretty severe depression, puts a lot of weight of his value into his relationships that he has. He completely changes who he is, everything from religious beliefs to activities he's interested in for these women that he's somewhat dated, but mostly he dates one woman, and all of a sudden they're the best thing in the world, and he ends up marrying them, 6 months later or so. And with this woman, my sister's met her. I've heard about her, and she seems great. My sister's talked really well of her, but again, we feel like he's almost pressuring this woman into getting married as soon as she can, where even my sister said it feels like she's trying to say, hey, let's hold off a little bit longer, maybe June or so. And we're just wondering, because he's suffered from such a severe depression with things, how do we bring this up to him? How do we talk to him? Is this something we have to kind of let him go forward with, or do we try and have some sort of intervention, or, how much do we tiptoe around him versus sit him down and say, hey, like, things need to change, or you need to do some introspective seeking?
I guess my response to that is, if you sat him down and said that, and he looked at you and said, or what would you say?
When you say, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, so imagine yourself, play it out for me. You set him down and you say, hey, you've done this twice, you're chronically depressed, you got some challenges that you need to work through. You don't need to be marrying this woman right now. We think this is a bad idea. So you can't marry her. If he looked at you and said, or what?
Yeah.
What would the response be?
Yeah. Our response would, we'd still be there for him. We'd still support him. We'd still come to his wedding, if we're able to.
So what's your relationship? What's your relationship like with him?
It's good. I'm not close to him. I'm on the other side of the country, so I speak with him every couple of weeks on the phone. My sister sees him every couple of weeks, so we have a pretty solid relationship. He was running into his last relationship with his girlfriend pretty quick, and even to the point where he brought her out here to visit me and my family. And I kind of sat him down. I was like, hey, she seems really nice, but she seems very cold to you, and I don't know if that's the right thing for you. And to the point where he even said, like, hey, that's one of the reasons why I separated with her, was because of that conversation. So we have a good relationship. Cool.
Is it worth you flying out, just take him to coffee?
Yeah.
And say, hey, I love you. And sister says this new girl's pretty amazing, but this feels really fast. And I guess there's two things here. One, I just simply, I haven't experienced, and I don't know other people who have experienced things, outside of abuse and physical violence, right? More heartbreaking than watching an adult family member make choices that we don't like, agree with, and that we know are going to hurt them. And they simply didn't ask for our opinion.
Yeah.
And so we have to make a choice. Or are we going to love them through it, or are we going to turn our back on it? And there's moments when turning our back is the right thing, contrary to popular belief. And there's moments when you sit down with somebody and you say, hey, I wouldn't love you. I wouldn't be loving you if I didn't tell you what I think is the truth. I think this isn't a good idea. And I'll be there. I'll sit with you. I'll sit with you when you're happy. I'll sit with you when I think this thing falls apart. And you're welcome to come visit me, like whatever your ground rules would be, your boundaries would be. But I guess the second part is I want you to frame this as, or you can do what you want, but in my head, the framing is at versus with. Or as my friend Jefferson Fisher says, don't try to win the exchange. Instead, I want to understand. I want to sit with you. I want to make sure I tell the truth so that I fully show up here. And like you said, I'm going to be with you. We're going to come to the wedding. I'm not going to abandon you. I'm not going to walk away or whatever.
Right.
But I do love you enough to sit with you and say, this doesn't look good, man.
Yeah. We're trying to communicate, I guess, to him that, he puts so much value into these marriages, whereas the second relationship fails, he spirals into this depression. He talks about suicide.
Sure. Has he ever gone and done like a inpatient?
Not to that point. He's seen psychologists on a regular basis, from what my parents have told me, and he's told me a little bit about it. I think it's been a while since he's had regular visits. But I think our big thing is trying to see that he needs to be happy by himself, and once he's happy being alone, then he can be happy with somebody else. He suffers from chronic pain from an injury that he had, and he constantly focuses on finding these women who are super successful that financially can kind of take care of him. Mm-hmm. Even though he works, it's more entry level work that he does, and so.
And here's the thing: he's found a solution that actually works, especially in the short term. And so he's always in pain. We know that being with a loved one relieves that a little bit, even if you have to conjure up a loved one. Mm-hmm. He seeks people who've got resources, and when he doesn't have those resources, he goes to his parents who provide those exact same resources. So I guess the convincing that has to be done is a season of more pain and more discomfort is actually better for you in the long run.
Okay.
And that can be hard. You get what I'm saying? That can be hard to see because he's got a solution that works. It's the same as sitting down with somebody who struggles with alcohol. Alcohol works, man. Alcohol is a solution until it kills you. And similarly, he'll run into something that, what has he actually lost? He doesn't bring anything financially to these relationships. He's not losing anything other than a couple of months of his life when he hits rock bottom again, and then his parents are there to bail him out at 40. And so it just kind of stays in this loop.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I guess my challenge to you would be, yes, if I'm you, I'm having this conversation. That's just my nature. Okay. Everyone around me who is in my family and my friends, they know I would have this conversation. I kind of speak my mind a lot. And some of my friends and family like that. Some get mad and hang up and don't talk to me for a few weeks, and good for them. I totally honor that. But I think it's coming up with what's the goal of this interaction? Is it to delay a marriage? Is it to get him into therapy? Because if it's get him into a long-term, let's actually get to the root of some of this depression, then you and your mom and dad and your sister, y'all come up with a plan for a 30-day or 60-day inpatient intensive. And it's going to be expensive. And if your parents have resources or y'all have got resources y'all can pool, sit down and say, here's another path. We've already cleared the road for you if you want to go do this. And we all love you enough and think this would be good.
Okay.
But again, getting to that goal. If the goal is just to stop the wedding for a while, you can throw a grenade in it and do that.
Sure.
It'll just pop back up in June, right?
Right.
And so I think it's asking you yourself, what's the goal? And then I know this can be prohibitive, especially cost prohibitive, time prohibitive, but I always think these conversations are better had in person. They can take place on the phone, of course, but there's something about communicating, here's how important this is to me. I'm going to fly out and look you in the eye.
Yeah.
And that's tough.
Yeah,
that's tough,
agree.
I know. But I would like to say this. Thanks for being a brother that still loves his brother.
Yeah. Yeah, no, of course. And he's a great person. He's always here for us. He's offered to help. He has really good, conversations with him, and we want to be there for him. But obviously there's this blind spot that he just can't see that we tried talking to him about, and, pretty passively. And I'm just wondering, okay, if we go too aggressive, does it spiral him even more into depression? Or, like you said, hurt now for long-term happiness, which I think is the right solution.
And I guess the one thing I would challenge, I can almost guarantee you he kind of knows too.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
I don't know many people that struggle with alcohol that don't know that next drink's not great. But they don't have another tool in the toolkit.
Yeah.
And if he's a compassionate, like smart guy who struggles with chronic pain, he knows how bad it hurt the first 2 marriages that broke up, and probably the serious girlfriends he tried to make super serious in between those marriages. Like, he knows. He just doesn't have another chord to play other than the chord he only knows. And so every song sounds the same. And so until he gets some professional care, and at 40, he's going to have to unplug himself from the world he knows and go sit with somebody.
Yeah.
And there's some really extraordinary resources out there for inpatient treatments, but he's going to have to learn some new chords so he can play some different songs. That's just hard, man. But we live in a culture, man, where family writes off family more than ever. Just write them off. And so it always is something I want to make sure I just double click on and tell you I honor you for still loving your brother, and for looking down the road a little bit, even when he can't, or when he just chooses not to, and saying, we've seen this story play out before. We're gonna be there for you. So thanks for loving him, my brother. Appreciate you, man. Hope the conversation goes well.